Rudy Giuliani is traveling today to Georgia, where he faces 13 counts in connection with trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. And here's what he told reporters on his way out of his New York City apartment moments ago about surrendering to authorities in Fulton County.
I'm going to Fulton County to comply with the law, which I always do. I don't know if I plead today, but if I do, I plead not guilty. And I get photographed. Isn't that nice? A mugshot for the man who probably put the worst criminals of the 20th century in jail.
Wow. Garrett, I'm curious about Rudy Giuliani and his ability to post bond. I guess he's finding the money somewhere. Are all of these co-defendants going to be able to refrain from being detained?
It certainly looks that way, Mika. You know, you don't necessarily have to put up all the money up front on these bonds. There's various other ways that you can post the necessary money to make sure you stay out of prison. And I think as we see some of these lower level folks on the kind of conspiracy tapestry here, if you will, come through, we'll get that question answered. You remember, right now, one of the big questions we're trying to figure out is how many of these people are going to end up having some of their representation or all of it covered by Donald Trump's legal apparatus, the Save America PAC or other groups stepping in to help them. It doesn't appear that's going to be the case with Giuliani. There's been a lot of public reporting that he has been trying to ask for financial help from the Trump team and hasn't gotten it. And we know Mark Meadows has basically separated himself from the Trump political apparatus as well. He's the other person that I'm watching really closely to see if he ends up showing up. Remember, there were those filings late yesterday back and forth between he and the judge, in this case, the prosecutor's office. He does not want to have to turn himself in. He's still trying to get this whole thing kicked up to federal court and not have to show up in Atlanta at all. So a lot of moving parts to be watching down there in Georgia over the next 48 hours or so.
So, David Drucker, let me ask you, it seems to me that the air of normalcy isn't hanging heavy out there this morning prior to this debate. You know all the participants in this debate quite well. You know the Republican side of the aisle quite well. What impact, if any, do you think reality will have? And the reality I'm talking about is defined by a former president who in 24 hours or 48 hours will have a mugshot available for all the American public to see, who you can say about him, he could have gone to Milwaukee because he's out on bond with privileges to travel. I mean, just those two items alone separate him in many different ways from the pack of candidates. But will it have any lasting impact?
I think the only impact I expect all of Trump's legal issues to have on this debate is how much the candidates do not want to talk about it. Outside of Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson, none of them want to talk about this. To the extent they talk about it, I expect them to defend Trump and criticize the justice system. And of course, it's really a strange sort of thing when the guy you're running against, who's the front runner's been indicted, 4 times, and instead of stomping on him and trying to use it against him, which is exactly what Trump would do if any one of them had been indicted and threatened him for the nomination. Certainly what Trump would do if DeSantis was the one that had been indicted. Instead, they rushed to his defense. And so not only do Republican primary voters not believe these indictments are justified, in fact, his numbers have only gone up with every indictment. The NBC News reporting on its poll in Iowa showed that in the middle of the polling, Trump's indicted in Georgia. And that night, the calls showed Trump's numbers go up from the previous night. And so for Republicans, this is a very delicate issue they'd rather not discuss. But I think it's one of the reasons why Trump leads, because every time they talk about electability, they're then asked, OK, so Trump lost the 2020 election. Well, not exactly, maybe kind of, sort of. So how can the guy not be electable if he actually won in 20 and the election was stolen? They're busy making convoluted arguments. Now, some of them, Vivek Ramaswamy and a couple of others, will just say flat out, very succinctly, the Justice Department is wrong, Trump is being wronged. And I don't think all of this is fair, but all of it has the cumulative effect of Trump's opponents sort of running as blocking backs for him. And it's just one more reason why, one, he's probably better served strategically not showing up at the debate because Ron DeSantis is now the biggest target, and that serves his purposes, and why in absentia, they're more likely to defend him on his biggest, general election vulnerabilities versus attacking him. Again, outside of candidates like Christie, Hutchinson, and who knows, maybe a couple of the others will surprise us. We haven't really seen it yet.
All right, senior writer for the Dispatch, David Drucker, on site at the debate tonight in Milwaukee. David, thanks so much. We appreciate it. We're also just getting news now that Kenneth Chesebro has surrendered in Atlanta, in Fulton County. You'll see right on the top of the list there of people who allegedly conspired to overturn the results of the election inside the state of Georgia. He now has surrendered as well. Again, President Trump expected to surrender tomorrow, we believe tomorrow evening. So, Brendan, as you look at this contrast of all of these indictments, one by one, these members who worked with Donald Trump or worked on behalf of Donald Trump in the state of Georgia to attempt to overturn the election, as you look at that side of the story contrasted to what we're going to see tonight, where, as David said, Chris Christie, Asa Hutchinson, they will say flatly that Donald Trump did something wrong, that he lost the election, that he pushed a bunch of lies. But everyone else has tried to tiptoe and walk the line between keeping Trump's voters close, not offending them, and perhaps trying to say something that in support of the democratic process of our elections that were overturned, at least attempted to be. Is that a dance they can do? They haven't done it very well so far, if so.
Well, I think it's probably too late to change their tune at this point. I mean, they spent the first 3 or 4 indictments here defending him and laying the groundwork to make it easy for him to skate off of it. So you can't just turn around now and start criticizing him. And I get why they're not criticizing him. I mean, we have polling out this morning showing that this is extremely unpopular to criticize him. But the problem is, as David pointed out, you got in this race to defeat Donald Trump. At some point, you had to realize you have to make an affirmative case for why he should not be the nominee. And you don't have to be anti-Trump. You don't have to sound like Chris Christie. I mean, I think we know the reason why Chris Christie's unfavorable rating is so high with Republicans is because he sounds a lot like Democrats. He sounds like an anti-Trumper, and Republican voters don't want that. But you still have to make some kind of affirmative case for why we need to turn the page. You can say that you had that he was a good president. You can say that he had 4 years of great accomplishments, but you have to find some reason to complete that sentence and complete that thought as to why now we need to turn the page and do that. Thus far, they've not been willing to do that because I think a lot of them are in self-preservation mode. Ron DeSantis probably thinks he has a future if he doesn't win here. He wants to hedge his bets. Tim Scott probably needs to get reelected in South Carolina if he's not named VP. And frankly, they've just been unwilling to take the risk, and they've got their consultants who are happy to take the fees and not get on some kind of blacklist for being anti-Trump, and it continues.
So as I go back to you one more time, Garrett, some more details. Kenneth Chesebro, of course, the Trump campaign attorney, was granted a $100,000 bond there this morning in Fulton County. He becomes the 6th of the 19 co-conspirators indicted in the state of Georgia in Fulton County.
Yeah, that's right, Willie. And I suspect we'll probably see another rush of these folks to try to get in and out before Donald Trump and the associated media circus that follows him comes tomorrow. Nobody wants to get caught up in that. I just wanted to add one thought to something that David was reporting a minute ago with my sort of congressional reporter hat on. This effort to defend Donald Trump that didn't always start as an effort to defend Donald Trump started on Capitol Hill. It started with House Republicans and the language about attacking the Justice Department and a 2-tiered system of justice. I mean, it goes back to the Hunter Biden laptop. This stuff was built in, and every other Republican kind of went along with it up and until we got into the point of this presidential campaign. And now the language and the structure is there. It's what the party expects to hear, and it's going to be extremely difficult for any of these other candidates to say, oh, yeah, we thought, this was all true before, but now that we're talking about Donald Trump specifically, in fact, the Justice Department is good and law and order is our friend. It's just going to be a very difficult turn for any of those candidates to make. Mika?